Welcome, welcome, most welcome. Last session today, at least in this room, and always difficult to find, to be the last session before the drinks and food. Nevertheless, we have an interesting session. We have an interesting table with 5 men around the table. But the previous table was more inclusive, I guess. But this is what it is, so you have to deal with us today. And basically, because it's so different, the people around the table and also the dimensions they represent and the views they have, that we called it, basically living in a VUCA world. And VUCA is a term from the defense industry. It's volatile, it's ubiquitous, it's chaotic. And what does the A stands for?
Ambiguous, uncertain.
And very uncertain, whatever.
Like my life.
Yeah, and it's a little bit like this session as well. But on my left side is Jan van Boesschoten. He works for AMS-IX. What is AMS-IX?
For the people that Internet exchange. So basically the backbone of the internet in Europe, in the world, and also in the Netherlands.
Very good.
Yeah.
And it's a foundation.
It's a foundation.
Not a company in that sense.
And that's really, really nice. So I don't work for the swimming pool of the CEO, but and therefore we also have a lot of we have room to invest and do research over what we're going to do in the future, and also for this subject, what we're going to do with sustainability, and really think outside the box.
Yeah, nevertheless, you're a technical person as well, because before you worked for Vodafone, I guess.
Yes.
That's at least what I read. And the nice thing, you have a certificate, and I need to read this, of problem solving using computational thinking.
Yeah, that's... I always like to solve problems. I'm puzzle. I'm a really puzzle fan, and my guilty pleasure is like, the jigsaw puzzle. So that's what I really, really like. And to when you have a problem, the stuff is you have to take it step by step. Solve one step after the other step, and that's more or less the method I have, despite all the management books and all that kind of stuff. Just solve the problem step by step, and when you don't run into a wall, you can continue.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a good idea. You have a history and arts study background. I read, and you like swimming.
Yeah, I swim a lot. Yeah.
You swim a lot.
Open water swimming. So
right.
It's
tough guy. Tough guy. In front of me, Robbert Kelder. He's from Groningen. We are alike. I was born there. You have in history in KPN, and you work now for InSpark. How does it relate to KPN? How is it a subsidy or subsidiary of KPN? How is it constructed?
InSpark is a fully owned subsidiary of KPN, and we focus upon implementation and managed services upon Microsoft technology. And with that, you see a lot of challenges regarding ESG, data sovereignty coming into play. And with that, we would like to help customers in the Netherlands with that.
All right. And AI and data, you're an innovator with a certain vision. We talked to each other before. Yeah. At least you're also busy like how to turn these kind of things for organizational change, isn't it?
Absolutely. One of the things that we invest a lot is our collaboration with Microsoft. Delivering them services, but also innovating their services, and how to bring that to a Dutch context or a European context. And then you come into play, okay, how does that relate to EU regulations? How does that relate to ESG? How do you take that into consideration? But also, how do you transform your companies with that?
All right, we'll talk to you later. Daniel, he's also in front of me. We know each other for at least 20 years, but you lived over 30 years in the Netherlands, coming from South Africa. Any regrets coming here?
The weather.
The weather, yeah.
But I hear that's changing. No, it's a wonderful basis and it's a wonderful place to settle in. Yeah.
Yeah. You have been busy with data in all kinds of elements and all kinds of shapes in your whole life. You've been in scenario planning, talking about the future of internet. I mean, there's many topics you have covered. You created ClimateGTP, You can tell a little bit later about what it exactly is, because I think it's an interesting way of going to talk about sustainability, for example, because that's one thing we share today around the table, how we can tackle this topic on an organizational level and maybe on a boardroom level, but also from a data perspective. You wrote several books. You live in Amsterdam, and basically you travel the world, isn't it?
Yeah, I was, living almost on a plane for a period of time, and it's a global world, so it's a connected world, and IT is still not a substitute for personal contact and personal communication. So that was part of the work. Yeah.
Yeah, with all that travel, your footprint can be found. Yes.
Yes. Although there's a few climate initiatives behind that I think offsets that quite well.
Well, on my right side, Geert-Jan van Zanden, you were born in the Netherlands, but you're lived now for 34 years?
34 years, yeah.
Not in the Netherlands, so it's a nice combination here. You live where exactly now?
Right in Asia. I've been spending the last 7 years in Asia, right now in Bangkok.
Right, and what is the kind of work you did? Because you wrote some books, you teach. What's the kind of things you do?
Yeah, so I'm full into sustainability. I've spent 10 years as a managing director in a sustainability advisory firm, mainly focusing on leadership development. So what are the type of skills leaders need to drive sustainability transition? And
what is the main skill they need to learn?
Well, it's a set of skills. I mean, we can talk about that a lot, but to make a long story short, it's very much about being able to think in systems, to align people behind purpose. I mean, these type of. But that's a very big question.
Yeah.
But I spent the last 2 years at a business school, Sassin School of Management in Bangkok. It was founded by Wharton and Kellogg. As an advisor to the school and also teaching sustainability and transformational management.
All right. Well, so you see everybody around the table is busy with creating a better organization. Some from another perspective, from a perspective of how we plan scenarios, or some from maybe some initiatives we are going to talk about a little later now. You've been taken and to see if whether new initiative around maybe CO2 reduction in the IT world can have an impact, yes or no, and if it is big enough. But let's start with you, Geert-Jan. How can boards effectively oversee support and tech-driven sustainability? Mm. And how can they support these kind of initiatives?
Yeah, I think that really depends on how sustainability is considered at board level. I see two mindsets at two different extremes. One is more a compliance mindset towards sustainability and maybe a risk management mindset towards sustainability, where companies, they just want to do basically the bare minimum, not to break the rules. And in that case, you often see sustainability sitting maybe under communications or corporate affairs. If you're lucky, it's sitting under finance. But there's a whole different way to look at sustainability as an opportunity for new growth. This is one of the biggest opportunities of our lifetime in terms of how much money is going to be moved.
Yeah, a commercial opportunity.
Yeah, commercial opportunity. And so you also see some boards where they have realized that it's a big commercial opportunity, and their sustainability is taken as a strategic rather than a tactical topic, with all the consequences. So I think that is probably the main difference that I see. And of course, in Asia, where I am now, Asia is kind of the supply chain for the rest of the world. So there's a compliance mentality mainly there. I'm trying to show people that there's life beyond compliance. In fact, if you look at sustainability as compliance, it's probably going to cost you money, right? Because you're always following whatever regulations put on top of you. If you see it as an opportunity, you start developing a culture around innovation. You start using your data in order to drive new business models, open up new markets. So it's a completely different way of looking at it.
Okay, yeah. So there's a commercial opportunity and beyond ESG reporting, just like that, because that's just what
be
you have to
careful
do
mentioning
anyway.
ESG reporting. To me, I'm a big critic of ESG reporting. I think at the moment, so much attention is just going to reporting of ESG. We're barking up the wrong tree, or we're going down the wrong rabbit hole of ESG reporting. There are numbers out there that estimate that the world will be spending about €500 billion each year just on reporting.
Yeah, and nothing happens really.
And that's a bizarre number, and we're not moving ahead at all. We're missing all the SDGs, most of the SDGs. So there's something wrong with the approach that we have, which is focusing on just ticking the boxes and hitting some.
I see you nodding.
ESG targets.
Yeah.
How do you handle ESGs in that sense? Like how you look at these kind of things?
Well, what we see more often within the Netherlands is that ESG reporting is becoming more and more important. However, having it as a design consideration for your IT infrastructure is a whole nother game. And that's where the difference comes in. The reporting is not that hard by itself. You have the models, you have the reporting standards, and you can all do that. And you see some companies making that shift already. But the more important aspect, how do you design your infrastructure with not only cost and reliability and security in mind, but also look at an ESG perspective. And that's where most companies find it a lot harder. Like, how do I trade off performance of my web application towards the carbon dioxide? And that's the one thing that we're still learning in society.
But I think it goes further. If you the focus on ESG at the moment is really telling companies to stick to their business as usual and fine tune it a little bit. Yep. And all everything is telling us now that we're going to miss all of our targets. And the climate target is that's not something to mess with.
Absolutely.
That climate change is going to continue happening. It's happening much faster than all of the scientists expected. And once we start going over certain tipping points, it's going to be irreversible. So it's not a nice to have thing. So we need to move away from fine-tuning business as usual. We need to start looking at much more radical reinvention of business models, and that's a whole different game.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. And at the same time, those are the skills and lessons learned that are still missing in society.
Right.
You see some companies stepping in, but most companies are still struggling. And that's absolutely where you see the reporting and a lot of investments being done. But how do I do this? How do I actually radically change my company in a sense that it compliance applies, but also makes change?
Do both.
And I think that's an insight that we're still missing.
Jan, are you struggling?
No, I'm not, but that's maybe my kind of personality. But I totally agree. I think we're so stuck in a way of thinking that whatever you try to do, it has to do a certificate or something like that. And instead of just, okay, let's do something that we know that is good, whether it's hurt the business or not. But, if we don't do anything, the only business that are still running are insurance companies and building companies, because all the houses, they will run down on water, or there will be firestorms, so they need to be rebuilt, so the economy will become really close. And of course that's a bit of playing with how you say a caricature of what's going on. But we need to act, because otherwise, there's no commercial business anymore, because everybody is busy keeping all the damage in control that the climate change is doing. So, and therefore, we also were looking into the problem, and we thought, okay, what can we do? What can we do that we think is good? And we looked in CO2 reduction. I had a business flight, and I looked into it, and it generated 1,000 kilos of CO2. I thought, okay, 1,000 kilos of CO2. CO2 is a gas, so 1,000 kilos of a gas, how much is that? And then I found out that 1 kilo of CO2 is 510 liters. So that's almost 500,000 of CO2 gas that I generated. I thought, oh yeah, maybe I can offset it with buying some carbon credits. And then you can buy some carbon credits for €3 or €10 or €20. And it goes to KLM or some carrier. And they plant trees.
That?
And I go like, okay, I don't trust that.
No.
So, and I thought, what do I need to offset 1,000 kilos of CO2? Well, then you need about 2.5 to 3.5 hectares, hectare trees or forest in a year. So you need a lot of forest to offset your CO2 emission. So, and I dive deeper into the numbers and I found out, we can't do this. Basically for one flight, you need the whole province of Flevoland turned into a forest, and that's only my traveling. So what can we do as a company? And at that time, Zeewolde data center of Meta was going away, and it didn't continue. I thought, well, if we buy that land and turn that into a forest, so buy agricultural land as an industry to offset that in our carbon and start, focusing on biodiversity, because that's something that we really know starts working from the first moment. So we start looking into that, and we came in contact with Landschap Erfgoed Utrecht, and started the idea to buy like 40 hectares of agricultural land and turn it into forest. So that was the plan. Everybody happy. Peter, our CEO, he talked to the accountants. They had to be, how do you say it? They had to be relived because they almost got a heart attack because they can't do that in the business model. So we're now looking how we can make this idea into a viable initiative, and we came to be an ambi-stichting, and start just turning land into forests. Just start, and then let's see later on what we can do with the reporting. But everybody wants a certificate, but the certificates we have now are, I don't dare to say, but I think they're useless.
Yeah, I understand. So if you don't want to be compliant or on an administrative level, this will be hard to translate. I'm looking at Daniel. Daniel, you created ClimateGTP. Maybe you can explain a little bit what it is first before we react to what does this probably mean?
Yeah. So between where we are now and a future state. The general calculations are that we're going to be spending somewhere between 100, some of those recently is almost as high as $300 trillion to change our economy to a decarbonized economic system. So that's economic system, agricultural system, political systems, the ways that states interact, etc. So that translates to somewhere between $1 and $5 trillion. So the global economy is about $100 trillion per year. So that translates to, somewhere between 1% and 5% of the global economy. And the lesson from that is earlier action matters and forward-looking action matters. And so we asked ourselves, we can carry on doing scenarios as you pointed out. And within that, we're fortunate enough to have had, some significant successes. But or do we look at a way of changing the architecture of the global conversation? So how can we make it easier for climate insights? How can we make it easier to use AI, which is the fastest paced technological innovation that we've experienced in humanity so far, so the fastest paced adoption of technology that we've experienced so far. So how do we get that? And so we decided to build a climate-specific model that looks at and is underneath it based upon scientific articles, so that when you have a climate query, and this is climate in its broadest sense, not the weather, but the impacts on human systems. So how do I write, or how do I create a net zero plan for my data center?
And you explain me, it is some foundational model?
Yeah.
Which means, for people that don't know what a foundation model is?
We wanted to build, it's the first model to have built on climate change, the first foundational model. So you train it from scratch, and there's really about 2 handfuls of parties across the world that do that. And we were fortunate in the position to have had very, very large web-scale collections there. And so this is the second one in Europe to come after Mistral, which is the French AI company. It's the first AI model to contain in it a sustainability scorecard. So we showed how much CO2 do we use to do that. And it was quite a bit of a battle to get green power to train a model on at our scale. You know, you're talking about 300 billion tokens went into it. That's more or less the size of Bloomberg GPT, or about a third. You know, it's you know, starting to get in the league there. But we found green power. Can be found a hydroelectric plant in the north with GPUs, with all of those things. And we run inference on green power. It's freely available. The model's open source. The paper is public there. You know, it's done in partnership with the Club of Rome. And we used also, some of the members of the Club of Rome gave input to it. It's grounded in the OECD work on climate, the World Resources Institute work on climate, the International Renewable Energy, and etc., IPCC's work, the Club of Rome's own work on that, and to make our decisions a little bit easier, to make the compliance burden, which is how companies often look at that, much, much easier. We've just ingested 187,000 ESG reports so that you can almost get to one-click ESG reporting. But it's not about your optimization. It's about system-wide optimization. So looking at your neighbors, how can you work together? And we all do this because ourselves, our children, and certainly our children's children need different future.
I think I think there's a fantastic opportunity there for more of us to understand the system-wide impacts of our decisions. I've seen so many industries, for instance, the power sector, I've done a lot of work there, where power producers just wanted to produce as much power as possible, right? That was their business. They wanted to build more thermal power plants. And they should really be looking at how can I make money selling as little power as possible? And in fact, there are business models doing that, right? And I think if all of us would start to think that way, of how can we do things that help the system and we can still make money because there is value being created, you just need to think about the business models. Then we're moving forward, rather than fine-tuning or offsetting, you know, our legacy business models.
Yeah, 40% of power generated century is lost. So the interesting question is these virtual power plants, how they interact, how they do these things. It's not just what you put into the net, but thinking through demand and how these demand works. And, you know, in the end, there are thousands and thousands and millions of decisions being taken now.
Yeah.
How can we make them climate change ready? How can we prepare this? How can we talk? You know, I was in Climate Week in New York, and everybody was talking about resilience. And we had closed tables like this of some of the biggest supply chains on Earth. Trillions and trillions of dollars in the room. And we ask ourselves, like, who's ready for doing business in a 1.5 degree plus world? Where are the plans? And it got very quiet. So we have a lot of work to do.
And there's little time, yeah.
Yeah, and how can we use this incredible power of AI to make it that bit easier to do this?
You brought us a little bit of an example, how does it work? And I thought like it would be a nice idea to have a look at the system, and based on the question you raised, I thought, okay, extrapolate, put the question in, what is happening. In any case, if there is a question here in the room, please raise your hand, and then we have a microphone that we can throw somewhere. Oh, it's somewhere here. It's here. Right.
It's not throw as in a victim.
No, but I can throw here. Look, catch it. Is there a question already?
Yeah, the question that is a lot of years on my mind. We reproduce a lot of data again and again. I'm 30 years in this business, and a long time ago we have people who are archiving. And then it's the end of time and we get it away, that paper. But now we don't clean anything. And if you look to all the data centers, we all know that there will be, we have a problem on that. But I don't hear any new things. Can we clean can you archive and put it away so that we have more availability in our systems? Because everything is there in your phone and things like that. And I think also if the IT tech come with solutions like that, there will be more space. Because we all know how much compute is needed for AI.
Yeah, but I don't
And we
think...
don't speak about things like that.
Well, data is the big problem. We only have data from the last 10, 15 years in which we think in a certain way. So I'm not really optimistic about AI, which is going to find the solution. We can use to calculate the things. Absolutely, it's a fantastic tool. But all the data in there is from the last 20 years when we really start, accelerating in a certain different certain way of thinking.
But it's not necessary to have everything. This is what I mean.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
This is what I don't have that answer, but it's a thing that is on my mind a lot of time because also in my previous job, I help customers to can bring them to the cloud or on-premise and everything, all the data centers. That's my job. But more and more I have the discussion with my customer. Do you need all that data? Do you need all that? Maybe it's better to have first a cleaning and then we do a migration.
I see nodding people. Can we speed up? Can we speed up these kind of things, or is it the mindset, or is technology solving this?
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
It's a little older work. Sorry, I'm supposed to talk this way, but
So the microphone is in front of you.
I feel very impolite, but the thing about technical systems is 80% of the cost of technical systems is legacy. You all run vast things, and most of your budget is devoted to legacy. And so we did a bit of work for a client who was spending at the time, they spend a lot more now, but $1 billion on IT. I'm sure there are people like this in the room there. And if your 800 million in is your legacy systems, you're left with 200. Of that 200, 90% is allocated to some level of incremental improvement. You're left with 20. Of that 20, you're going to do actual innovations. And of that, 90% is going to fail. That's more or less the rate of success in Silicon Valley. And there's no reason to think we'll be much different from that, if indeed maybe worse. And so you're left with, 1, maybe 2 million of actual innovations on $1 billion budget. And the question here is, it's a very deep question. It goes beyond data legacy. The question is, can we build non-legacy IT systems? And the challenge to the IT managers at that point was, what are your willingness to break with the past and redesign systems according to modern things? And unfortunately, the decision was no. It's too risky. And so at this scale, with all of these energy uses, we continue to run these systems. And these are decisions perfectly within your purview. These are things that you as a CIO can decide. And so AI can help in putting different, better, easier decisions on the table. But in the end, it's going to have to, copper into legacy systems.
Yeah, you've been working on system change a lot. Is it the mindset?
I have, but then it's not about IT systems. It's more about the food system, which has tremendous inefficiencies in it, or the mobility system. And how do you change that if it's made up of so many actors with different agendas and different dynamics? But I very strongly believe in us having to start looking at systems change rather than the marginal change that we're seeking right now.
Yeah, is it possible, Robbert, system change?
Absolutely, but from a technology standpoint of view, we have a lot of focus upon the large language models at the moment, which are prompt-based. And in the past, we've seen more attention going towards the data crawlers, going through your data and looking upon which data do I need to archive, which retention periods need to be. But the shift towards the LLMs has caused us to also move away from those data crawlers. And with that, I completely agree. We're saving so much data at the moment, and with our focus upon large language models and everything related to that, we'll probably be saving much more data the coming time, where we should be also focusing upon, do I still need this data? Where can I deduplicate my data, and where can I reduce data?
Yeah, but data hunger and data growth will stay for a while. And you indicated, well, that's one thing, but there's so much more that causes CO2 output and whatever and footprint. Maybe this is the moment where we show a little bit of your system, because otherwise you did a lot of work, even tonight. I saw. So to show us a bit what is possible, maybe these guys can put a little bit up on with it and talk us through.
Yeah, I'm happy to share a bit of a preview. This is Model 2. So at the World Economic Forum, we launched Model 1. And it was quite an interesting session. Everybody from the former head of the Space Force in the US was there to Lama's blessing the Model 2 head of, chief sustainability officers of various organizations. And so what you see here is we're looking at natural capital. And I just wanted to show, this was last night a little late, but it was after my California calls. And everything in black you can see there, the model generates. And it starts to ask, my eyes aren't that good anymore. So which approaches are there for, tying natural capital to decarbonization strategies for and it's just making those decisions a little bit easier. And you'll see my typos are there. And you'll see it come by. And then eventually I say, well, organize this into tables, add some cost components to it, give a sense of what are the levels of CO2 it'll sink. And it doesn't mean everything is right. This is where the technology is now. But this is at the scale of pretty much everything known in climate as now. And it'll start to give references to scientific publication. We wanted to train it on non-fiction data. And it helps make interconnections which are incredibly hard to do otherwise. And so putting this underneath your, you'll see there it organizes in a table. And, there are certain breathtaking moments when a model, it figures out what should be the titles of the different tables, it figures out what should be in it, and it reconverts those, and it gives you the assumptions at the bottom of how it was built. And you'll see me asking to add some columns to that table. And suddenly, in seconds, we can get access, because there are not enough transformation experts or climate experts or system change experts in the world to support this change. We're going to have to rely on AI to do this. We're going to have to rely on these incredible technology to make those future decisions a little bit faster and a little bit closer.
And can it also help with the reporting on which we spend now trillions and
Absolutely.
Because and then use our time for something different?
Absolutely. I mean, we would just, there's a number of organizations we're working together with on adding the reporting, but also adding factuality. So with George Mason University, we're adding 150 specific climate data sets, so numerical climate data sets. So you can say, real time, what is the weather here, or what is the historical basis, or how is this cost of CO2 shifted? And those, human development databases will be added to that. So it makes reporting grounded in facts. It makes reporting grounded in where those documents come from. And it makes that first draft of a report much, much easier to do.
So if Jan wants to use this, like how his ideas will extrapolate into something new, then he can use it.
Yes. And when we decided we're going to do this, the general opinion was it's crazy talk, because everybody wants to chase AGI. So, technologies over time diverge. The internal combustion engine became the motorbike, became the sports car, became the sports utility vehicle, became the family transportation vehicle, became the midlife crisis. All of these things, technologies diverge. And so task-specific models, we wanted to have a small model with a low carbon footprint that's freely available, that doesn't require, built on green energy, runs on green energy. And the future is going to be long. And each of the organizations in this room will start to have your own, perhaps not a foundational model, but at least a fine-tuned model. That's the future we're heading to.
Can I just add a word of caution to that? I think it's fantastic, right? The better informed, the better. But, sustainability transformation is 10% sustainability, 90% transformation, old-fashioned transformation. So how do you get your stakeholders aligned and on board and collaborating? That is the transformation challenge, really. Stakeholders now, they all have their alternate realities, that they alternate effects, right? So the challenge is to one extent it's getting all the data right, and but the real challenge is getting stakeholders to collaborate towards a common goal, and that is a very psychological, softer process that I'm sure many of you know. But we're intellectual people. We like to have facts and data. Real transformation is a psychological process. So we need to become good at that as well, right? And that's about collaborative skills. Learning how to take like mindfulness towards stakeholders. These are also things that you can learn.
Yeah, how do you look at this, Robert or Jan?
Yeah, what really triggers me is that we are willing to spend $1 trillion on reporting for feeling safe, while the water is rising, for instance. That's really, but I think that's just us humans, and that transformation is the same with innovation. It's the same what we do with the forest. We have to start a complete new conversation with the people. Say, okay, let's do it. It's fun. You can do so much more. You can involve people. You can take, and we want to do it in the Netherlands, not somewhere else, but get your staff outside. Plant the trees, or have or a small house there, sit there, do your meetings there. So really get the whole transformation, get people out of the office, let them experience what it is, and in the meantime, do something good, because it needs to be fun, because otherwise people just spend on reporting to feel safe while they're not, and while you have given the fun, they will willing.
Yeah, it's a change in paradigms, of course. Robert, before I go to you, Robert, is there something you want to add? Is it because you were talking also the commercial opportunities this era brings? Is it also a way if we introduce these kind of things and AI in for organization? Is it also an opportunity to when you're faster than other organizations to boost your commercial opportunities?
Well, that was one of the things I was actually wondering about, because I completely agree with you that it's business transformation that you can enable upon this topic. And yet at the same time, I wonder, do we learn enough from each other? Because, for example, looking at cybersecurity in the world, we've started to collaborate together, working against those threats and sharing more and more knowledge. Whereas upon sustainability, ESG, we either look at it from the reporting side or from a business transformation, but we barely share insight upon how we do it and how we collaborate upon how we actually change things within our company.
Yeah, but we have this is what Daniel does, is an open system. It's open innovation to a certain extent, and you have open sources. I think it's 250 million a day.
Yeah,
you're scraping. Yeah,
we process each day just over 250 million URLs. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's open information. These is open research, whatever. Okay, but that's there's a question.
Yeah, I'd like to be a bit of the devil's advocate in the room, if you permit.
Happy that we have them in the room. Yeah.
Because we are running out of time. And I don't mean with this session, but I mean with the environment. And we have 5 brainiacs here at the table. One came from Thailand to the Netherlands to talk about ESG. And I don't mean any disrespect. I heard this gentleman who used to live in South Africa went to New York to debate about ESG. This is all not good for the carbon footprint. And I'm not judging anyone, because I have 2 international careers myself, and my carbon footprint, there's not enough room on the planet to plant forests to make up for that. But can the 5 of you, because we need to start acting now, give us each an action point that we can do ourselves from today to start making the change happen? Because as Barack Obama said, it takes 1 person to change a street. It takes a street to change a village. It takes a village to change a city, and it takes a city to change a country. We need to start somewhere. Let's start now.
Yeah, Okay, thanks. We try to get there, and maybe it's a nice question to end because we have a couple of minutes left. So I'll take that then as the final question to all of you. What is the best tip we can do to start today for yourself? Before we get there, is there if there's no other questions in the room? Oh, sorry. There you are.
My question is, do you think that we need regulations, strong ones, to sort of standardize the usage of technology? And probably it comes together with the, let's say, bodies like WFF, economic forums or whatever standard organizations to really make sure that, because technology is also the one which is creating a lot of problems. And I think whether it is ESG, sustainability, ChatGPT is a very good example. Everyone is creating their own models and is hungry for power. Do we need, that is the solution? That is something what can really put the brakes on the consumption of energy, but also standardize and create a lot of noise and how to go about that? I know it's not easy question, but do you think, is that something which can solve?
I have one more to add to this.
Did I?
Yeah, throw it.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of talk about sustainable business models and being inventive, and I think that's all great. But as we know, majority of companies just wants to make money. And I think what's interesting is that we don't complain about all the reporting budgets for financial reporting, which we find very normal. But so don't you think that by also putting some regulation in place, like Europe is doing now, we get the data that we need to actually start benchmarking each other, to start measuring something that will again create opportunity for business models. And yes, we have to then go through a couple of years of this very sort of nitty-gritty stuff and the wrong focus maybe for a couple of years, but after that we get to a new situation.
Okay, so if you have a fast-changing regulatory environment, how do you keep up with that in order to get to a next stage as well? And yes, I agree with you. There will be some years of nitty-gritties and headaches probably before we get there. But on the one hand, yeah, a system could help. Is it technology that will be solve it, or will it be the mindset? Mm-hmm. Someone else wants to react to one of these questions?
Well, I would like to react to both of them. Regulation always follows, but I do think companies need a certain extent of accountability for the compute power that they use. And as soon as you introduce accountability for how much do you use and where do you use it for, that's a start already. And to the other aspect, the practical aspect, I think at this moment, looking from an IT perspective, we do not consider enough yet as a design decision upon how you implement your carbon dioxide, how you water reduction, whereas we do that for cost, security, and stability. And if you embed that within your organization to make that conscious decision, okay, well, what's the impact going to be? And as a company, you're accountable for the compute power that you use and the purpose that you use it for, I think you would already make a large change.
Is that also an answer to your question already? Yeah, there you go. So maybe we can wrap up a little bit. Geert-Jan, do you have some kind of tip or whatever? How can we start from
how each one of us
on a personal level?
Well, so there's us as persons, of course, and then flying is an important one, or your diet is an important one. But I'd like to keep it in the realm of us as business leaders. I think all of our systems have been built basically on the mindset of it has to be economically as efficient as possible, and we succeeded. We made economically very efficient models, but with tremendous environmental and human inefficiencies, right? And that's because in the 1970s, that's how we taught our business students. We should start teaching them something else. Teaching them, installing a different mindset. And you can do that with business students, or you can do it with the people in your own organization. Just starting the conversation in your organization about what is your personal purpose. What type of world do you want to be building? That's a question that people find very motivating, actually. and then going through a process of searching for, well, how does that align with what we're trying to do as a company? That is an extremely powerful exercise and motivating. People with purpose, they work harder than people with lower levels of purpose, right? So it's going to benefit your company probably. Right? But that would be my recommendation. You know, start that conversation and see how it lines up with your company's purpose.
So there's your second one. Jan?
You have pen and paper, I can give you a whole list. So, well, stop eating fish, that's one. Less meat. I don't know whether you brush your teeth, probably you do. Don't use plastic tubes, but you have those small, they look like ecstasy pills, but it's actually to brush your teeth. Use soap, not the plastic bottles. Use public transport. When you buy clothes, you know, I always buy a special kind of jeans. They last for 4 or 5 years, you know. So there's a lot you can do yourself, and I personally think that you first look at yourself, see what you can do, and then you can shout, yeah, we're gonna plant the forest, you know. But first, you have to do it yourself, you know. So I skip some conferences because, you know, I don't want to fly. And of course, I do some business travel, but I cut it down. And I'm very lucky because I live and work in Amsterdam. So, you know, I take the bike, the push bike, not the motorbike, but the push bike. So and for the company, extend your way of thinking. And you know, Keynes already told you we need a strong government, but that's a sensitive subject, and it should be a sensitive subject, but we need regulation. And when you have a factory that, you know, keeps its pricing low, but dumping waste in the river, you know, it's not a sustainable business model. So also the damage you cause should be in the price of the product. And then you get a totally different kind of economy.
Yeah, so CO2 pricing is a start for companies, also maybe on the... So you will be sharing your buying list to dollars. That would be a tip for you. Daniel, for you, simple. Give them free access to your system, no?
We're happy to support access. You have access to that. Just apply. It's there. Certainly the consumer grade for the parties that want to work at a more serious level, at enterprise level, we have deeper facilities available for that. But you know, too much doom and gloom. You know, 400 gigawatts of photovoltaic was deployed last year. 400. You know, when we had this discussion 10 years ago, people said, well, you know, we will never, ever, ever have renewables because it's too expensive. Now, you know, we have the first bits of discussions. You can see the lobbying of we can't have renewables because it's too cheap, meaning too disruptive to the established order. 200 to 300 gigawatts of wind. What is that? That's 400 nuclear power stations were built, you know, when the sun is shining. When it's not, it's not, but 400 across the world. Zero safety engineering because it's 1 million kilometers away. We've got the atmosphere to protect us from the radiation, and you point a piece of glass and you get, 20 to 40% conversion on that. We've had 18 doublings of photovoltaic solar. This is technology. And if we have 4 to 5 more, everybody on Earth will have more or less European levels of energy available to them. These things are readily available there. Doesn't mean there isn't challenges because this is intermittent power and you have to think about how to do these batteries. But then, you know, these are technical challenges. The room's filled with technology people. These are things that we can solve. You know, there are thermal batteries now. I have colleagues in California, they're building 300 gigawatt hour thermal batteries for data centers. That's 300 nuclear power stations running for 1 hour. And it costs cents. It's built with bricks.
Yeah.
So we've got enormous technical opportunities here. We just need to get into the place where we can easier make different decisions with a different lens. And the lens is tomorrow.
Thanks. Hopefully it helps. At least on the personal level, you can get into contact with them. All the other things is maybe a little bit wider. I mean, you cannot help the whole world at once by yourself, but maybe I would like to thank the four of you being at my table today, and hopefully it was a nice discussion on a topic. It's a little bit, you know, we're not having on a daily basis probably in our world, but hopefully it was useful. Outside, there's drinks and food. You only need to walk outside, and so hopefully it rains that you can stay for a while and mix and mingle and rub shoulders here and, you know, do some nice things. So thank you very much, and hope to see you in another.